I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is men need friends. Need. This is non-negotiable, guys. On some level, men need other men in their lives in order to be happy and fulfilled. Robin Dunbar, the Oxford psychologist who lends his name to the Dunbar number of human organization, has gone so far as to claim that men need two guys' nights a week to maintain their mental health. The issue is that a quarter of men, a number that is likely rising, report having no close friends at all, and that, according to Dunbar, men generally are socially very lazy. There is a loneliness epidemic that is sweeping through the world of men, and it's only getting worse. Millions and millions of men are very alone and very isolated. Now you might think, well, what's the problem, Orion? Can't these lonely, isolated men get together and make friends with each other? Wouldn't that kind of solve the problem? And on some level, it really is that simple. Like, to solve the loneliness epidemic, men need to find each other and invest in their friendships. But the solution is much more complex in practice. Today, I'm going to talk about a number of social obstacles that obstruct men's ability to make and keep friends, especially later in life. Let's get to it. First, I got to call guys out. Men, you suck at maintaining your friendships. And that's a real shame because male friendships constitute some of the best relationships I've had in my entire life. They tend to be supportive, uncomplicated, and enduring. But nothing is really going to change for men unless they start to value and prioritize these relationships in their lives. Like, life is not going to go out of its way to do that for them. Men have to make that happen. And in the absence of willingness and effort, they're going to have more of the same. And I think men will have an easier time of this if they can learn to value emotional connection as meaningful in its own right. Like, women tend to find emotional connection to be intrinsically valuable. Men, not so much. Guys generally need some sort of pretext to get together. You may have heard that women tend to socialize face-to-face, whereas men tend to socialize side by side. It's like men need some other activity to exist to serve as a pretext for connection. Watching a game, working on an engine, taking a jiu-jitsu class, which functionally means that the connection doesn't occur if no activity exists or if the logistics of the shared activity prove infeasible. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem, but one of the consequences of this requirement is that it tends to make male socializing less frequent, even in the case of perfectly willing participants, for the simple reason that the logistics aren't always going to line up. However, this can be mitigated if men can increasingly awaken to the joys and pleasures of connection, which, if they're being honest, is often what they're looking for in an indirect and roundabout way when they participate in shared activities. This is because connection isn't really a woman thing. It's an emotional need common to all human beings. Individuals vary with respect to the extent of this need, but as social creatures, it's something that all of us, men and women, need to one degree or another. Being honest with yourself about this need will help you get it met. In fact, and this is going to sound kind of crazy, but it's this apparent needlessness that creates a liability for men. Men often think that they don't need very much from other men. In general, the more you need other people, and the more other people are going to be in your life. On the other hand, the less you need other people, and the fewer people are going to be in your life. And let's be real, the virtue of self-sufficiency, both materially and emotionally, is definitely valenced in our culture in a gendered direction. The rugged individualist ain't feminine. The rugged individualist is manly. And being stoically self-sufficient is always going to be more masculine than, say, being emotional and needy. So let's not pretend that it isn't. But men do have emotions and men do need things, at least in order to thrive, if not technically to survive. And there's a big difference between just spilling your purse out on the table and not admitting even to yourself that there might be things that you need and want from others. Like there is a big distance between those two extremes. So let's not fall into the trap of dichotomous thinking. Rejecting the one extreme does not mean that you accept the other and vice versa. Somewhere along that continuum, and it might actually be closer to the stoic side of things than to the expressive, is the optimal position. And I'd encourage men to keep experimenting along this spectrum until they find it. In any case, it's important to remember that if men need nothing from nobody, then they might just end up with nobody in their lives. If you're interested in taking your understanding to the next level, I would encourage you to check out the Captain's Quarters, my members-only self-improvement community. Your monthly membership will get you access to a cadre of like-minded, supportive individuals, bi-monthly group consultation sessions hosted by yours truly, and exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. Click the link in the description for more information. Hope to see you aboard. To this end, I think it might be helpful for men to examine the value proposition of their friendships. Like, I'd like to think that my friends don't dislike me, but I'm clearly not very important to them. Think about it. When they hang out with me, they don't get laid. They don't get paid. They don't help out their wives or their kids. They don't improve their fitness or learn a skill or solve a problem. Maybe they get to blow off some steam and have some fun. But that's more of a quality of life benefit than an essential component of their lifestyles. I'm like the 10th most important thing in their lives. And given the demands of the other 9, it's no real surprise that I only see my friends once in a blue moon. I'd like to see them more, but that's not ultimately up to me. You can't get blood from a stone. And let's be real. Men are rewarded when they prioritize other things ahead of their friendships. Socially, men are conditioned to be workhorses, to be producers of value. When they fall into that role, they are rewarded. When they resist that role, they are punished. And hanging out with his friends doesn't really benefit anyone besides the man in question. It doesn't benefit his wife or his kids or his employer or his clients or his community or his government. It only makes the individual man slightly happier, which is why it's not considered to be very important. You're going out with the boys again? Didn't you just do that a few weeks ago? I would have thought that you would have grown out of this phase by now. It's time to mature and leave those days behind you. The source of this pressure, directly or indirectly, I found, is generally the man's wife or girlfriend. And the upshot is to influence the man's behavior to be more productive in ways from which she might more directly benefit. And while this productivity can lead to wealth and achievement, it does come at a cost. In fact, some men have this like Stockholm Syndrome relationship with productivity. They can't escape the social expectations of being productive or the social consequences of being unproductive, so they embrace it so thoroughly that it becomes a part of their identity. I know so many guys my age who spend the first half of their day generating value for their employers and the second half of their day generating value for their wives. And that's their lives. Now, some men might find that to be the perfect setup. After all, what more does a man need besides his work and his family? However, independent of the question of whether such a life is optimally fulfilling, it is risky for men to behave in this way. A man who acts like this, who shuffles between the office and the home and back again, is a man who makes his life smaller and smaller and smaller. he consolidates his needs into fewer and fewer people, which make those relationships far more critical than they otherwise would be. And while this isn't necessarily a problem if the relationships involved are stable, trustworthy, and enduring, it is an enormous liability if they turn out not to be the case. To use an extreme example, there is a reason why it is far, far more common for men to commit suicide after a divorce than it is for women, like 10 times more likely. So many men outsource socializing and relationships to their wives over the course of their marriage. His wife's friends become his friends, and he socializes more and more with other couples. The wife is typically the one who schedules and plans and coordinates the social dimension of the relationship. And this is a problem if and when the marriage falls apart, because not only is the man out of practice securing and maintaining relationships, but the woman is much more likely than the man to keep those relationships in the wake of a divorce. Suddenly, the man finds that he is now without a social safety net, that he's neglected his own friendships, and that he potentially hasn't made a new friend since college. It's a situation like this, which is far more common for men than it is for women, that unfortunately can lead an emotionally vulnerable person to enact a permanent solution to a temporary problem. In any case, I think it's critically important for men to understand that their lives are much more than the value they can produce, and to continue to prioritize the activities and relationships that make them happy as individuals over and above the expectations of their women. Doing so should not only make them healthier, but should prove to be an important hedge against a catastrophic downside. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And please send this episode to someone who you think might benefit from its message, as it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. Anyone looking to join my free weekly newsletter or book a paid one-on-one consultation can do so on my website. There's also my book on relationships, The Value of Others, and my member community, The Captain's Quarters. The links to everything are in the description below. If you like the content here, check it out. There's a lot of value and resource I put out there that I don't discuss on the channel. As always, I appreciate your support, and thank you for listening.